June 7, 2026. Put a giant circle around that date on your calendar. It sounds far off right now, but for anyone working in HR, that is the hard deadline for the EU Pay Transparency Directive.
Yeah, it is creeping up really fast.
It really is. And we aren't just looking at a simple new rulebook here for this deep dive. We are looking at a fundamental shift in how we actually value work.
It's honestly going to be a culture shock. The directive 3023-970, if you want the official numbers, has a really simple headline: equal pay for equal work. But the subtext is basically the end of the salary black box.
Right, because for decades, salary has been this tightly guarded secret. But the sources we're looking at today make it crystal clear. The directive essentially forces companies to show their math. You can't just, claim to be fair. You have to prove you're fair.
Exactly. The burden of proof shifts entirely onto the employer now. And the standout stat here is the 5% rule. If your gender pay gap exceeds 5% and you cannot objectively justify it, you are facing mandatory joint pay assessments and, frankly, potential fines.
And objective justification is the key phrase there. I was reading through the breakdown, and it really seems like the days of paying someone more just because they negotiated better or because you had a good gut feeling about them.
Yeah, negotiation is not a legal defense anymore.
At all.
You need gender-neutral criteria: skills, effort, responsibility, and crucially, education and experience.
Which is exactly where the connection to background screening got really fascinating for me. Because usually we think of screening as a safety gate, checking for criminal records so you don't hire a bad actor.
Right. But in this new context, screening transforms entirely into a tool for pay equity defense. It actually becomes your primary evidence. Think about it. If you justify a higher salary based on a candidate's specific master's degree or 10 years of specific experience, that credential has to be factual.
Because of the inflated CV risk. We've all seen it. Someone claims to have managed a huge team of 50 when it was really just 2 interns, or they list a degree they never completely finished.
Precisely. And if you hire that person at the absolute top of the pay band based on that unverified claim, and they are working right next to a colleague who is paid less but actually possesses the real qualifications.
You have just manufactured an unjustifiable pay gap. You are basically paying a premium for a total fiction.
And under the new directive, that is a massive liability. Employees will have the legal right to request anonymized data on average pay levels. So if they ask, why does he earn more? And your answer is just, well, he has a master's degree, you better have the verified background check to prove it.
So for the HR leaders listening right now, this really moves background checks from standard risk management to true equity assurance. Let's get super practical. If I'm auditing my process today to get ready for 2026, what does that strategy actually look like?
It comes down to a few core pillars. First, you have to standardize your scope. The sources highlight a major trap called ad hoc screening. You can't verify the education of candidate A but completely skip candidate B just because candidate A went to a university you don't recognize.
Because that introduces bias immediately. You need a set matrix, like for this role level, we verify X, Y, and Z for everyone, every single time, no exceptions.
Exactly. Consistency is your shield here. The second pillar is obviously GDPR and local compliance, making sure you do all this legally. But the third point is the one most people entirely miss, which is audit trails.
That's the part about connecting the dots, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not enough to just simply run the check and file it away.
You must document the explicit link between the screening result and the final pay decision. If you're ever audited, you need to be able to show a clear logic. We offered this specific salary because this verified background check confirmed these exact qualifications.
Yeah, it makes total sense. It turns the basic hiring file into a legal defense document. But we can't forget the human element in all this, the managers. They are the ones out there actually making these verbal offers.
And they are very often the weak link if they aren't trained properly. Managers need to fundamentally understand why they can't just offer an extra $5,000 to close a candidate if the background check doesn't support that level of experience.
It sounds like a really tough conversation. If a check comes back with a discrepancy, say the candidate has 3 years of experience, not the 5 they claimed on paper, the manager has to be prepared to say, hey, we have to adjust the offer because the objective criteria for the higher band wasn't met.
It is sensitive, definitely, but it protects the manager and the company. It finally stops that whole winging it culture where pay gets based on who the manager likes the most during the interview.
And finally, we have remediation. If you look at your internal data right now and you find gaps, you can't just look the other way.
Absolutely not. You need a strict, time-bound plan to fix those gaps before the directive officially kicks in.
Transparency builds trust, but only if the data behind it is absolutely solid. The new era really is all about evidence.
It is. If you can't prove it, you can't pay for it.
I want to leave everyone with a final thought to mull over today. If your top performer walked into your office tomorrow and demanded to see the exact data justifying why their peer earns more, would your current records actually stand up to that scrutiny? Or would you be scrambling to find proof that just isn't there?
That is the ultimate question you have to